Good morning, I'm Robert San. From your wallet to the wider economy, join us as we follow the money. The Philippine job market is sending mixed signals. Unemployment has edged higher. At the same time, fewer Filipinos are participating in the labor force while more are working full-time as underemployment drops. So what's the real state of the Philippine job market? And joining us this morning is Dr. Luis Dumlao, Associate Professor of Economics at the Ateneo de Manila University, specializing in macroeconomics and the inflation-unemployment relationship in the Philippines and across Asia. Good morning, Professor. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Good to have.
Now, Professor, stats are out. Unemployment rose to 4.8%, while underemployment fell to 12.2%. Now, what does that combination tell us about today's labor market?
Yes, you're right about that, because you're comparing the latest data is May, and then you're saying April to May. I don't tend to look at it that way. I tend to look at it May on May last year versus May of this year because of seasonality. But you're correct. If it's just May on May, unemployment did increase by around 200,000 or 400,000 actually. And the labor force participation actually went down by 200,000 May on May. So basically 600,000 that used to be employed lost 400,000 of them lost jobs, and 200,000 of them left the labor force because either they retire or they don't want to participate in the labor market anymore out of frustration.
So why is that? So if labor force participation declined, interpreting it as workers giving up, people staying in school longer, or something else? What is the mix, the signals that you've been seeing?
It's usually either retirement or just people frustrated of the work. And they just don't want to participate anymore. Basically, it's a combination of the two.
Now, looking at the Gen Zs, the Gen Z left labor force faster than any other group here. Now, are they opting out of the traditional work entirely, or generally struggling to find a way in this market, especially now we're experiencing, going through a crisis?
Me just generalizing, the Gen Zs would tend to be more often unemployed because they tend to shift from one job to the other. The fact that they're shifting from one job to the other, that means within that period they become unemployed. They leave where they work either to become entrepreneurs, which is good, or they become startups, which is also good, or they just they just leave the labor force out of longer looking for a job that they think they would make a difference in this world.
Now, is the gap you mentioned in terms of switching from one job to the other, is it getting shorter because of the what you've mentioned, the frustration maybe of what's out there that's available for them?
It's always long to get from one job to the other. And for me, as from the older generation, it gets frustrating because I always, in job fairs, I always tell them, don't quit your job until you have found another one who's recruiting you. But for some reason, this generation they quit the job and then they look for a job. And we all know it's harder to get a job when your status is unemployed, and that's why it gets longer, and that's why it has a bias to make unemployment higher.
What's the difference that you've observed or seen, Professor, in terms of the different the boomers, the Gen X, the millennials, and the Gen Zs, in terms of their mindset, in terms of how they look at employment, how they work, the work ethic? We've seen traditionally the boomers and the Gen X tend to stay longer, and even if they're frustrated, they tend to stay longer in employment. But we see now, you've mentioned, that gap is really shortening.
It's I'm not sure if it's a generational thing. Gen X, for one, is close to what, 45 to 60, close to retirement, and
Without saying our ages, Professor.
you cannot really afford to be,
Yes.
not to just quit, and that's why. And it's also part of the in science. It's called the life cycle hypothesis that people who tend to be close to retirement stay at work as long as they can until they reach the finish line. So yeah, they tend to stay there longer, and then the younger ones, life cycle hypothesis, they tend to move from one job to the other. But it's also a generational thing that they get impatient and they shift from one job to the other.
Because traditionally, if you look at the mindset and if we look at the elders telling us before, stick to one job for the long time, for go up the ranks, then earn your pension, right? So that used to be the traditional thinking. So the mindset today is much different. You see more? Are you seeing more going towards the entrepreneurial route instead of rising up the ranks in the employment sector?
It's a combination that they first, probably it's our fault that we teach them to make a difference in society, and they think they're not making a difference in society doing 9 to 5 work. So they tend to quit because I'm not making a difference, and part of it is it's a generational thing that they're more to be impatient, and it's also theoretically it's a life cycle thing that younger people would tend to move from one job to the other. And there's also some of them, the good part of them is lots of them tend to be entrepreneurial.
So building a difference is more on their mindset than working for others.
Then making money.
Making money.
So maybe that's our fault. We raise them to be ideologues and
but in some ways,
there are
it's
consequences.
Not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad. Now, Prof, looking at the other stats, looking at the average weekly hours, it rose to 41.1 hours from 39.8. Now, are we seeing employers squeezing existing employees instead of hiring new ones, giving more overtime and all that?
It's always been the case. We're trying to squeeze the most out of ourselves, and that's okay. We have the freedom to say I don't want to be part of it, and maybe that's why some young people quit often, or we can accept it. But that's part of capitalism. There's no bad or good about it. I think it is what it is.
Is it also part of a way of thinking that it's cheaper to pay overtime than to hire somebody else and increase the team in the business?
You said it. If it's 40 hours a week approximately, it's either you hire someone for 40 hours a week as a new employee, or you pay them for 4 more hours for overtime, which is usually 1.5 times the salary of regular work. Sometimes not even if you're not a wage earner. You have to just work longer, and so yes, it would be cheaper just to ask people to work longer hours, that just to achieve the whatever the motto of that company is.
Okay. Now, Professor, looking at the public sector, public admin and defense shed around 175,000 jobs month on month. Now, is this due to belt tightening or budget politics?
It's more like a cyclical thing. It's you lose 200,000, then you never know. Next month you'll gain. Yes, we lost 200,000. Just I remember last month.
Yes.
So the latest data is May.
Yes.
April data, it's the largest
Are we going to see that
gain in jobs.
Oh, okay.
So it moves around. So it's just a fluctuation. It's
so
not
one
a regularity.
sector loses, another sector gains. Is that the pattern there?
At least you said public admin.
Yes.
For public admin, April, it was the biggest gainer of jobs. I'm not sure what the numbers are. And then and then May, it's the biggest loser.
Why
So
is that?
it fluctuates. It fluctuates.
Why is that?
It could be just hiring new people and then replacing others, and then some people retiring. It's 200,000 is a very small number in reference to the actual the stock of employed by the public admin.
Now, we entered 2026 with higher unemployment, which was at 5.8%. It went down to 4.7. Now, in April, it went up to 4.8%. In April, it went to 4.7%,
Yeah.
if I'm correct, and 4.8 in May. Now, is the recovery narrative already broken? How are we seeing it today? It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down.
Actually, by global standards, it's the full employment. Let's say in European European Union, Canada, US, in OECDs, it's around 5%. So the usual question I get from foreigners is, how is it any lower than our country? And that's it's too low. It's unbelievable sometimes. It's 2.5 million. But the reason I say is it's because the labor participation rate tends to be higher
Here.
and that's here, yeah, and that's why unemployment rate here tends to be lower than, say, the OECD countries.
Why that big difference? We're a developing country, they're a developed country. So how come we have better numbers than they have?
One hypothesis is that OECD countries or developed countries have unemployment benefits. If you get unemployed, that means you have to report that you're unemployed, and that's how unemployment figures tend to be higher. And
So
why
it's
do they?
It's easily monitored.
It's tractable.
Unlike
Yeah,
here, we don't get that.
we don't have unemployment
yes,
benefits.
yes.
Which means you don't have to report that you're unemployed. And why do we not report that we're unemployed? Because you don't have to prove that you're unemployed. Which means the thing about unemployment benefits is you have to prove that you're unemployed. That means you have to be looking for a job,
So
and
a
that's
bit
how you get
hard.
the benefits.
So, Professor, looking at it, with your professor hat, there's a disparity then in terms of the percentages and the absolute numbers, and in terms of the data that's being gathering. Maybe hindi nasasama yung what you mentioned because it's not really properly monitored.
Okay, so see, labor participation is if you're not looking for a job, you cannot be qualified as unemployed and employed. So you cannot be part of the statistic that is called unemployed.
Okay.
That's the problem. And because there's no unemployment benefit, you don't have to declare you're unemployed. Whereas kung may unemployment benefit, you have to declare that you're unemployed. So tataas talaga yung numbers.
Yes.
There's another, that's the other part. The other part is if you raise the labor force participation rate from 64 to 65%, just 1%,
Yeah.
yung 4.8% will go up to 6.3%.
Okay.
So that's a big difference. And now, when I get asked, now the foreigners, when I'm asked, now that's more believable. So they say, whether it's true or not, but that's more acceptable
Yeah.
for some people because they think it's more comparable with their countries.
Yes, true. Now, looking back at your research, Professor, in 2012, you found a weak inflation unemployment link. Now, over a decade later, does that still hold? Can you tell us a little bit about that study, why you found there was a weak relation?
There is a relationship, but it can be stronger. And the way the problem with the traditional, where you're referring to the Phillips curve, the unemployment rate and inflation rate. The problem with why is there a weaker link? Inflation rate is the change of price through time, which is dynamic.
Yes.
Unemployment rate is the rate of unemployment at a given time, which is a static figure.
So it doesn't move the same.
They don't move the same a lot of times. But if you change it to both dynamic, which is the change in unemployment rate through time and the change in price through time, then the relationship becomes, the negative relationship becomes stronger.
So what's the best way to look at it then?
I would go with just being the standard is still the traditional Phillips curve, but the way I look at it is to be more consistent with the science, which is both. Either you treat both as dynamic, change through time, both, or you hold both through time, which is both are treated static. But you cannot do. I'm not in favor of being inconsistent. One is static, one is dynamic.
Okay. So they have to be the same.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's the picture from the numbers so far, but there's more to unpack, including how Gen Z and millennials are rewriting what employment even means. Stay with us. Keep following the money. Welcome back to Follow the Money. Still with us is Dr. Luis Dumlao, Associate Professor of Economics at the Ateneo de Manila University. Now, Professor, formal wage employment technically rose this year, but if millennials and Gen Zs are increasingly turning to freelance and the gig work economy instead of the traditional jobs that we see today, is PSA's employment count even capturing the real picture of how Filipinos are earning a living today?
That's captured. It's they're categorized as self-employed. They're two. I think self-employed with employees and self-employed with no employee. So they're part of those employed. But since you mentioned it, the self-employed without employees is in terms of types of employment is the biggest loser. And then in terms of types, and then the one is working for private company is the biggest earner, which is part of which is consistent with the government target, which is more people have to be working in private companies.
So looking at that, are we now changing how we look at the data, how we try to monitor it, how do we gather the data in terms of trying to get the real picture instead of just the normal percentages and capturing everything?
So it gets dirtier, right? So the more you look at it, the devil is in the details. So another example is in terms of occupation. It's I don't want. It's very unfortunate. People are close to their hearts. Agri has the biggest loss of jobs, but sales has the biggest earnings. Which is, if you just look at it, the agri, they produce food, service, the sales don't. But in terms of the income, the service, in terms of quality as measured by how much they're paid, service, that's an improvement in that sense.
Looking at the difference now from looking back before in the traditional having a job, now we have the hustle economy, the gig economy, people not having jobs but being affiliate marketers earning income by selling online. Is that being captured? Are we seeing a different trend today in terms of how the younger generation are looking to try and earn a daily living?
It really is entrepreneurial, and lots of them are working on their own. But lots of them are also working online. Online. And usually,
or sometimes augmenting what they already have.
And a lot of times it's not just, it's part of the reason why the remittance coming in has been greater than our trade deficit. More dollars has been coming in because lots of these are self-employed, technically self-employed, but they are actually being paid by someone abroad doing administrative services.
I mentioned that because the Labor Department describes the monthly swings as seasonal normalization. Now, what would need to be true for that to hold? And does this month's data, the data that was given to us, meet that bar?
That's why we have to look at it May versus May, not April on May. You don't want to look at December on January because December is Christmas season.
Yes.
Obviously, employment rate is higher. than on January. So the comparison better look at it is to go year on year. Unfortunately, even if you look at it year on year, unemployment rate actually went up from 3.9% to 4.8%.
Yes, but that's true. If you look at the December numbers, it would greatly change because that's a time when a lot of spending happens and a lot of hiring happens. But then come January, it kind of wanes, and then throughout those months. So it's really better to look at the data comparable from last year to this year, not let's say January, February, March, April, May. You won't get a real picture.
Yes, and even May is then you have to, because those who follow the traditional calendar, used to be traditionally the graduation period is April, March. And those people who used to be not part of the labor force officially become unemployed when they start looking for a job. The fresh grads, and unemployment rate would tend to be higher compared to, say, February. So that's why we have to look at it May on May, April on April. But then, unfortunately, May on May, unemployment rate is still higher.
But on the other side, Professor, because if you look at, let's say, the difference between a month on month in terms of policy making for the government to see, okay, unemployment is rising, what can we do? But then if there's no fresh response, if there's an announcement that there's an increase or a decrease in employment or underemployment, is that a sign that the numbers are not really painting the real picture here? For us to be able, for let's say the government or the private sector to create moves to create, let's say, better employment, better jobs, creative ways to get more people into the job market.
They still have to look at it year on year. If the numbers go up, let's say April and May, you have to put it with a grain of salt that some of it is seasonality. And then sometimes the best move is not to make a move. And for example, the central bank, that's not the mandate of the central bank. The mandate of the central bank is inflation. For government, yes, they have to create a competitive environment. Whether they have to hire more people just to create jobs, the traditional expansionary Keynesian policies, they have to be careful because some of these are just seasonal patterns.
Now, when you have conversations with your students, Professor, those who are nearing graduation, are they worried about entering the job market, seeing how it is today? What are they expecting? Are there fears? Are they worried, or are they optimistic when they go into the job market?
At the risk of being mayabang, unfortunately, my students are not representative of society.
That worry.
They're not that worried because they are up there. They go to graduate school, abroad, home, they family business, and they get jobs. They usually, or sometimes, I'm sorry, they're not representative of the actual what's happening on
the ground, the public schools,
on the regular
schools.
That's a very unfortunate term. But
because we've seen the data.
Could be the different story.
Yes, it's a different story. So you see your students more well prepared, and they see it coming.
It's. I'm not sure if let's just say they coming from more reputable. They're
reputable schools.
Yes.
Okay, Professor, let's move on now to the rapid fire segment. Quick answers to quick questions. Let's start with this: quiet quitting or quiet firing? Which one's actually driving the numbers today?
Quiet quitting.
Quitting?
In our generation, especially.
There are a lot of, you see a lot now, quietly just going.
The finish line is there, so let's just...
Retirement phase now.
Yes,
okay.
It's quite down. And then there's the Gen Zs who tend to be quite quit. And then
moving around.
Okay.
Now, job hopping or staying put, which strategy makes more sense in today's economy? You mentioned the Gen Zs hop a lot.
Ideally, stay with your job, but for us ideally, but for the Gen Zs, they move around because they want to make a difference, and fair enough.
But also, doesn't that hamper them? Because if a company sees them keep on moving, that will hamper them being employed by that certain company. You see, they're just going to hop around.
If you move around from one job to the other and your strategy is to stay with one job, then it will not go in your favor.
But following up to that,
yes.
Professor, because of the Gen Zs would rather be unemployed than underpaid. Is the data proving them right?
They would rather make a difference.
Make a
In
difference.
society. Yeah.
Now, which generation faces the tougher job market today? Gen Zs entering the workforce or millennials trying to move up the ladder?
Yeah, it's millennials moving up the ladder.
That's harder? It's tougher?
Yeah, I would say it's tougher. No, yeah.
Okay. Gen Zs want purpose. You said they want to make a difference. Millennials want stability. Boomers want loyalty. Now, in this job market, who's actually winning?
It's no one.
No one's winning. Not even the Gen Zs?
No.
Okay. Now, finally, Professor, before we close, if you had one honest piece of advice for Gen Zs, millennials, Filipinos watching right now, unsure whether to chase a traditional job or bet on gig work or entrepreneurship, what would you tell them today?
It's fine to quit. It's fine to move jobs. But don't you ever quit until you are already recruited by another. Don't quit and then look for a job. No, fine. While you're working, look for another job. When you're recruited, then you quit.
Okay, very good advice, Professor. On that note, thank you very much for joining us this morning and giving us a fresh observation and look at the numbers that we're seeing today in unemployment, employment, and underemployment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's all for today. I'm Robert Tan. Thanks for watching. Keep it here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel and always follow the money.